All righty, welcome back to another episode of Sports to Suits Live, where this week we're shaking it up quite a bit. We're not on Tuesday. We're ending out the week with a lot of joy on Friday. So thank you, everybody, to everyone that's tuning in and listening. I've got some amazing guests joining me today, and we're going to jump into all sorts of questions and just use this as kind of a Q&A hour. So as you guys are joining in, definitely go ahead and start dropping us some comments. Let us know where you're tuning in from. And also start submitting some questions. We've got some amazing leaders and people joining in today. So I'm super excited to kind of pick their brains a little bit and learn a lot on this Friday. So I'm going to go ahead while you guys are joining in and introduce everybody. So I'm going to start with Miss Sheila Gibson. So Sheila is the Assistant Vice President at HCA of Acquisitions, New Construction, and Divestiture Projects, specifically around technology integration. And that is a long title. She also serves on the Education Equality Opportunity Group as the board chair of the YMCA and is the board member for the Women's Sports Committee of the Nashville Sports Council. We are cheering Sheila on because she just won the Diversity and Inclusion Advocate of the Year Award through the Nashville Technology Council. So if you are tuning in, definitely give us a little bit of a clap or a thumbs up. And Sheila, thank you so much for joining in today.
You're welcome. My pleasure. Glad to be here.
Awesome. So next, we have Jose Ramon Riesta. I'm super excited for Jose to join in. He is in the car, so be super safe, Jose. Jose is the president and CEO at Empire Management Group, Inc., a family-owned and operated community management company, treasurer of the Volunteers for Community Impact, the 2022 40 Under 40 Award winner for Central Florida, top CEO award in Central Florida, and has also worked for organizations like GlaxoSmithKline and Procter and Gamble. So Jose, thanks for joining in.
It's always my pleasure. Anything with you guys, I'm always here. I love it.
Awesome. And then we've got Rhett. So Rhett has been a guest on the show before. Rhett is the co-founder of Accountability Inc., a Marshall Goldsmith Top 100 coach, Forbes columnist, director of the board of directors for the National Peace Corps Association. And I believe, is it 2021 or 2022 that you were the #1 ranked U.S. small business coach?
That was 2020, I think. 2021, okay. Something.
Yeah. Well, we are still celebrating that and cheering you on for sure.
Okay. All right.
And then last, but most definitely not least, a great friend of mine, Corey Alexander. So we are super celebrating Corey today too. Corey just submitted his dissertation for his doctorate degree.
Yeah.
So yay, we're super excited about that. He is the president of Ross Behavioral Group, executive director of College Bound Athletics, officer candidate in the Army National Guard. Like I said, he just submitted his dissertation for his doctorate degree in leadership and professional practice. He just opened a coffee shop. So if that was not enough, he is now a coffee shop owner. And he also, I'm a little bit salty about this.
A really cool one, by the way, and a really great place to hang out in Nashville when you're in the city. I'm just saying.
Totally agree. And if you're looking to purchase a coffee shop, then definitely reach out to Corey as well. He's doing some cool things there. And I'm salty about this award because I didn't win it, but maybe next year. He has won the Nashville Business Journal Top 40 Under 40. So we've got lots of amazing people on this call today. And so I'm very excited for them to answer your questions. So definitely don't hesitate. Submit those questions. We've already had several folks already submit some questions. So I'm going to start with those. The first one, we had Ryan Schochner reach out. And he was asking, what advice would you give to young athletes in middle or high school that are considering whether or not to participate in college sports? So I want to start, Corey, with you because Corey did track and field and played football at University of Tennessee, correct?
I did.
Okay, so I want you to answer and dive into that question.
So this falls right into what College Bound Athletics does, is dealing with athletic development, training, and recruiting. And what was the name of the person who asked the question?
So that's Ryan Schochner.
Ryan, I would say that if I'm talking to a middle or high school athlete who's looking to play in college, and what they should be aware of, what they should know, what they should look for, is that the fact that college athletics is a job. It's not just because you love the game anymore. It's you have to love the game to keep doing it for sure. But you are essentially an asset to the university, which means that you have a schedule. You have a regimented schedule at that. You have to eat right, go to class, keep your grades up, go to training, go to workouts, go to study hall hours, go to practice, and then also be a student. So if you want to play at the next level, you have to have a tremendous amount of dedication. You have to care about what you're doing, but you also have to understand that there's a level of expectation that is not just go out and have fun. It's go out and be a performer, do your best, be productive, and then also maintain every other aspect of life that you have outside of sports. So just be ready for the grind, because it's not easy to get there, nor is it easy to complete all 3 or 4 years, however long you're in college as an athlete.
Awesome. And Sheila, I want to ask you that question too. So Sheila, you played ball at the University of Alabama basketball. You went on to play semi-professional basketball as well. And I would love for you to dive into that too, as far as, what advice would you give to young athletes that are considering going and playing for college?
Right. Definitely, just to expound on what Corey shared, and that is, it's hard work. It was hard work when I went through the ranks, and I would say, just looking at the level of athleticism that these athletes have nowadays, and especially girls, it's even harder work. I mean, you have female athletes now just doing things that we didn't do when I was a female athlete. I don't remember, seeing someone in college dunk a basketball. And now you have girls in high school dunking a basketball. So just the level of hard work that's required because of the competitive level to be an athlete is so much higher. But also, I would say it's about prioritizing and understanding that you are a student athlete, and to prioritize your education with the hard work you're gonna do to be an athlete. Because and I can speak from experience, your ability to be a successful athlete can be taken away with injury, because that's what happened to me. But that education that you get, education and knowledge, that's something that once you get it, no one can take that away from you, and that will always be something that will be an asset to your journey and your future. So combined with what Corey shared, and then that's what I would add, just putting things into perspective and priority, and understand that you are a student athlete.
Yeah,
I love that. Okay, we've got some folks that are popping in with some questions, and so we're going to kind of bounce around all over the place today. And I know
do you mind if I add something to that though, Amanda?
Yes, I do want to dive into. So Jason did mention something about accountability, which is totally like.
No, I just had another thought on
Yep,
something
go
to
ahead.
add to, and it's actually, I think it's an important part of it. I'm just going through this with my 18-year-old who's going to college next year, and I had the same concerns when I was a college wrestler, and the only thing I would say is there are two things that are really great about being a college athlete. Number one, you have a built-in network when you go to college. You have a built-in team, a built-in set of friends and people that are your tribe. Number one. Number two, the support that you get from the school. So if you have a challenge in studying, if you have a challenge in academics, if you have a challenge, maybe you have a learning, if you have ADD, or if you have some other kind of challenging issue, they're going to help you study. They're going to help you get the grades. So a lot of schools will give those athletes a lot of extra help and a lot of extra assistance to get through school. So I would just say that. I think that's a really important element of being an athlete.
I love that. Okay, so we've got Jason Hurley popping in here, and this is so much in alignment with Rhett, some of the stuff and work you're doing. And he is asking, what role has accountability played in your life, both personally as well as professionally?
You're asking me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I mean, you did launch a company called Accountability Inc. So I think that this is a really good one for you.
I think everybody's got to. I mean, everybody that's accomplished something significant. I know Corey is. He and I have talked about this before. I know you have a system, and I know you hold yourself to high standards. Sheila, we haven't really talked or met, but I'm sure you have a system of your own that helps you stay accountable to what you do. But I think for me to answer the question is, it means everything. It's a starting point for success. It's a prerequisite for success. And I think everybody needs to have an accountability system. They need to have an accountability partner, somebody that's not going to let them off the hook when they don't do what they say they're going to do. I think everybody has to have stated goals, stated things that are important to them, that they want to get done, and they get to tell somebody about those goals, and they need to have a partner that holds them accountable. It has played an immense this is an critically important role to me personally and professionally. If I didn't have accountability partners and partners in my businesses to hold me to what I say I'm going to do, I wouldn't do them, and I just wouldn't push myself as hard as I need to push myself if I didn't have to be accountable to somebody else. And not, I don't want to be embarrassed. I hate being embarrassed, right? I hate not doing what I say I'm going to do. And so I think we all that good peer pressure is really a good thing. And on the personal side, if you didn't have a spouse or a partner or kids to sort of call you out on your nonsense and push you to be a better father, a better partner, a better spouse, then you need to find another partner or another person that's going to make you better. And again, I've had, been very fortunate in my life to have kids who challenge me every day, partners and stuff that challenge me. So it's just really, really, really critical.
So I will totally just shout out to Rhett on this one. So Rhett has held me accountable, and I probably would not be doing this show if it was not for this man. So I don't know which. So find people that will push you to be better, to do better, and then we'll also call you out on your crap when you're not doing it. And Rhett is a great person to do that.
That's the important one, right? That's the important piece, right? Is to have somebody that is going to be tough on you, that loves you to death, but is not going to let you slide, right?
Well, the reality is like there's so many people that are interested in blowing smoke up people's butts and just cheering them on and saying, "Oh, good job, good job." But like to really make substantial progress, I think you have to have like people that will give you that tough love and that will tell you, "Hey, you're missing the mark here." Jose, what are your thoughts on this one? And the question is so Jason asked, what role has accountability played in your life, both personally and professionally? And so we were just kind of diving into that, but I would love to pick your brain on that topic too. Nope.
No sound.
That's okay. Okay, while you're getting the audio stuff.
There we go.
Yes.
There, sorry. When I was playing sports back in the day, on the accountability aspect, it's not just on yourself and your teammates and your coaches. Your family members are all part of it too. If you come home to an environment that does not hold you accountable for even making your bed, there's no way you're going to hold any point of responsibility with it. So then you find coaches, mentors, teammates, and others picking up slack. And if you can't identify that you might have that missing aspect of accountability, it's really hard to build. That's why when you see a lot of the athletes who made it later and either very successful in business or in sports, they always look back and they always say the people that were toughest on them are the ones that they hold closest. You go to Tom Brady, all the coaches that beat him up day in and day out are the ones he always talks about. I go back and I will tell you, not just some of my early coaches in my career, my toughest managers are the ones that I hold in the most esteem, that developed me the most professionally and as a person. because they're the ones, like Rhett was mentioning, that's willing to point out without fear of that repercussion, without fear that if it's going to make you feel bad, that you're going to rest on your laurels and not even consider it. And accountability then becomes incredibly important once you go into your professional life, because the deadlines at the end of the day, most of the time, are imaginary. But everybody's going to hold you accountable to a deadline, the expectations you set. And that expectation setting is what ends up creating that standard for your day in and day out. And for me, accountability is everything. I don't micromanage my staff, for example. I hold them accountable, but I don't micromanage. And it creates a completely different operating environment as well for the organization. Accountability is very different from responsibility. So I think we can pull on and talk about this subject for hours on end. There's never
I
ending
mean, there's
amount.
so much to dig into with it. I mean, there's so many different directions. And so we had somebody else. So Mandy submitted another question, and Sheila, I want to direct this to you first. When you identify top talent within an organization that may be early on in their career, how do you go about like continuously providing education and resources to, one, keep them engaged, but to two, to continue to develop them and promote them into leadership roles?
That's such an interesting question because of where we're at today, and I think not just within my company HCA, but across all companies, because of it's a different workforce today. And so in the role that I'm in, I do a lot of mentoring, and I mentor what I call our young leaders. And so whether it's a young leader that I'm mentoring or if it's someone that I'm actually onboarding, I think with this generation of the workforce, it's very important to set early expectations with them. And so when I'm onboarding someone new, I set those expectations very early with them, but also making sure that they feel that they're coming into an environment where they can feel comfortable coming to me or coming to going to one of their peers, because HCA is a huge organization, and it can be very intimidating to and it doesn't matter your age. It can be intimidating to someone you're coming from the outside into healthcare, period, but then also HCA. So I think it's just important for you to embrace those new employees as they're onboarded, set those expectations for them, but also make sure that they feel that like they're joining an inclusive environment, and that's very important. And we all know, inclusion is huge, and the scope of inclusion is huge. So it's important to have those that script that you're going to go through with them to make sure that you're setting the expectations, but also again making them feel comfortable to come to you and also come to their peers. So just that peer relationship, I think, is very important.
So I want to dive just like a little bit deeper, but from the perspective of like so very early on, I've been very vocal that I want opportunities. And so do you advocate for young leaders to vocalize to their leadership members that they are interested in advancement opportunities or getting exposed to new things? Because I have not seen that a lot, where individuals feel comfortable in vocalizing, hey, I really want good, I want to advance in my career and I want good opportunities. Do you advocate for individuals to vocalize that?
Absolutely. I absolutely do. As a matter of fact, I have a presentation that I do, and the title of it is Ask for What You Want. Now, that doesn't mean just come in and ask for what you want. You have to come in with and be prepared for, do your homework, make sure you have a passion for what it is that you're asking for. But to definitely have that courage to ask for what you want and be clear, be specific. And then another thing that I always really reiterate to my young leaders or those that I mentor is don't take no personal. Take no as an opportunity to say, okay, not this time, not right now, but at least you know that I'm interested. And now I'm going to go and dig a little deeper, do some more diligence, work a little harder, and I'm coming back and I'm going to ask you again. But, I just find a lot of times with some of the young leaders that I mentor, sometimes they take no as personal, and it's like, don't take it personal. Don't take it personal. Just take it as it's not right now, but be prepared to, go and accept that and say, okay, now what's my next steps? Now that, because what's important is that you were vocal and you had the courage to step up and let your leadership know.
And so, Rhett, I want to ask you about this topic because you've coached some of the world's most successful people in general. It could be business leaders, executives, athletes, celebrities. You've coached amazing, incredible people. And so what are your thought processes around this specific topic, and what do you recommend to others?
I mean, Sheila's absolutely right. I mean, asking for what you want, you'll never get it if you don't ask for what you want. And often, to sort of Sheila's point, someone says no. I always look for the reaction when I say no. Right. And I look for the performance after I've said no as an indicator of a lot of things in a person, right? Particularly when I was a CEO and I had to say no to somebody about a promotion or some other opportunity. I always look to see how they reacted and how they performed after that, because that said a lot about their character, and it said a lot about their drive and their motivation and their ability to come back from a setback and just pick themselves up and perform. And so I think that's an extremely important point. And you can make yourself extremely valuable and extremely well respected and by how you perform after you get a no or after you have a setback. And I'm always looking for that as a CEO, as to who does well after a setback or a disappointment or a failure, right? If that person picks themselves up and carries on and works harder, fixes the problem, and that's a person I want to keep around, right? So I think that's what I talk about. I mean, in some of the coaching where I'm coaching somebody that's gone through a failure or a major setback in their career or their work, that's exactly what we talk about.
Jose, what are your thoughts on this one? Because you have won award after award for being a young leader and killing it in business very early on. So what are your thoughts on this topic? Mainly, I would love to pick your brain around like the mentorship and like people that you've surrounded yourself from a business perspective as well. Because it's one thing about, the sports community, but then you go into the business world and it's a whole nother community. So what are your thoughts around that?
There's one piece, going off on my own, and I was on my own. There's very little access to direct mentorship if you don't know people. A lot of areas will give you community services where you can get some mentors that are providing services through there. But there's one piece that my father gave me once when I started working at Procter & Gamble one day. And he told me, listen, you're going to get a lot of no's, you're going to get a lot of beatings, you're going to get a lot of everything. But focus on the people who take time to give you feedback, because feedback is a gift. Any sort of feedback. Someone who doesn't care at all about you will just stay quiet and does not care about your success or how you develop. So I spend a lot of time, for example, with my organization, giving them feedback all the time. I don't like it, I explain why. And I push them as to why, so they can develop their own ideas as to how they can also challenge mine, because I need to retain a status quo so we can continue developing new ideas and encouraging new successes. But I always go back to, and I tell every employee when I sit them down, we're going to have a session today and you're going to get feedback. You will or you may not like it, but take it constructively as a gift. Because frankly, if I didn't care, I don't have to give it. Because too many people are very happy in throwing the stone and hiding the hand. It's very simple. So that's how I treat it, for example. And that's my customers that don't give me feedback. don't really care about their service. There's nothing is perfect. If my friends don't give me, hey, dude, maybe that joke was too much, uh, you know, somebody needs to be willing to provide feedback. Back in school and sports, your coaches, your teammates, if they don't want the success of the team, why improve you? We're only as good as the weakest link in every organization and every team. So feedback is a critical aspect. So look for the people that give you feedback because they're mentoring you without them realizing that they might be, because they're the ones who actually care enough to tell you. And it takes courage to give feedback. So I implore people to also give feedback. It's way easier to just sit at home and ignore it.
So we've got some shy people. I can't tell if it's Friday or if it's the time or if they're just being shy, but Jason's not shy at all. So please, if you're listening in, drop in some questions. I have a whole bunch of questions that people have already submitted, but I would love to highlight some of the questions that you guys have. And Corey, I want to ask you this one. What is one life lesson that has been the most valuable in terms of your growth as a person as well as a leader?
I know the question said one, but I'm gonna give you two because they've been top of mind for me lately. And we've had this conversation. I know Rhett and I have, and I think Amanda, you were actually there for this conversation. Number one, as a leader, you should live your life in such a way that if anyone was to say anything negatively about you, no one will believe them, right? And that goes back to the giving feedback, but having the courage to take feedback, giving good advice and counsel, talking to your employees as if they're someone that you actually care about, not somebody who's just there to work for you. Talking to your friends as someone who cares about them, but also not being afraid to have those conversations of, hey, man, or hey, my friend, you got to fix this. But then also having good character, being a person of high integrity and morals, and holding yourself to a standard that, number one, you hold everybody else to, and then one that is something that people can't say anything negatively about. If I do something wrong, I hope that I can fix it. If I do something right, I don't need the praise for it. It's not about that, but I hope it's an example. And the one thing as a leader that has kind of stuck out to me, especially lately, is that I believe I have failed as a leader if I cannot understand or I have not done the job of the people I'm working with or asking them to do. So what I say by that is if I've got a front office admin and my admin does 10 different roles and responsibilities, I may not be able to do all of them because it may not be my wheelhouse. But if I can't understand what they do, I have failed because then I won't have respect for the things that they do. So I may not be the greatest with, I don't know, revenue cycle management. I think I'm pretty good. But regardless, I may not be the greatest with revenue cycle management. But if I can't understand the process of my billing coordinators who are doing those processes, then I have failed as a leader. So number one, live your life in a way that people can't say anything bad about you. And if they can, people won't believe them. And then also understand what the people that you lead, understand what they do. And if you can't understand what they do, at least try and do it so that you will have a better respect for the fact of the things that they have going on.
So, Rhett, what are your thoughts on this one? Because me, you, and Corey sat at that coffee shop and we were talking all about these topics. So I would love to know kind of like your thoughts on this topic as well.
Wow, I was just so engrossed in what Corey was saying. I think that's really profound, right? The whole idea of living your life so that if somebody says something negative about you, that people don't believe it. I think that's actually I want to explore that with you, Corey, a little bit because it's some offline and another conversation. God, that's a hard question. I think, we all think about our legacy. I think what Corey's sort of answer to that is about legacy, right? And I think you get to a certain age and a certain experience level and you start thinking about your legacy. And I think for me, it's about, at the end of the day, somebody thinks of me, or if I'm managing or leading, that people think I'm fair, that people think I am, I care. I think that in today's kind of business cycle that we're in, the business world that we live in, I think if your team doesn't believe you, doesn't trust you, doesn't believe that you have their best interest at heart, if they don't understand the mission and how they fit into the mission, you're going to have people that are unhappy. And I went a long way there. That was a really horrible thought process, chain of thoughts right there, but and probably really hard to follow. But Corey's answer just got me all philosophical.
Okay, well, we'll just move on. I've got an answer to this one because this was very profound in my life here recently. So as a gymnast, perfectionism is like your whole world is that of scoring a perfect 10. Like that's what life is about. And so I started processing perfectionism in business. Like perfectionism is like the total halt of all productivity in business, because to try to achieve perfection in business, it doesn't exist. So that was a big thing for me to kind of pull over. So we've got Cindy popping in here now. I do want to, okay, so here's an interesting question that came in, and it plays into some of the work that all of us have to do as business leaders, and is something that I've been totally terrified of my whole life. So Sheila, I'm going to start with you. The question is how does public speaking play into business leadership today?
So that's an interesting question. And the reason that I think that's an interesting question is because when you get in corporate America, you have so many different, what I would say, levels of people or leaders that speak well, and those where, I may sit through a meeting and I may feel that they're a little challenged in their public speaking, but yet they're still a leader, right? So to say, how important is it to advancing, at the leadership level? I would think that it should be important, but then when you look at, just like most things, when you look at the reality, when you put reality to what should be, sometimes there's not an exact balance. Now, me personally, I think that public speaking is important in leadership because it's going to allow you to receive that credibility from your audience. And when we say, public speaking, it's just not, I can stand up and speak publicly, but I can stand up and I can speak confidently when I'm speaking in public, or even if I'm not just in public, if I'm speaking just to a leader, one leader or a room of leaders. I think being able to speak with clarity and confidence is just as important as the fact that you can just stand up and speak, because there's a lot of training that you can go through, and there's a lot of what may be called tips and tricks that as you progress in your leadership journey, you may embark on some of that training and utilize those tips and tricks. So to answer, yes, I think it is important, but I think it's important from the perspective of, because you want to be able to present yourself, your thoughts, whatever it is that you're presenting, and be impactful to the receiver of what you're presenting.
So Rhett, I want to ask a similar question, but I want to alter it just a little bit, because Rhett and I had the opportunity to go to Portugal, to go to Web Summit, and that is a technology conference. And I was blown away by the technology leaders. So the CTOs, the CIOs, the directors of IT, typically roles that don't require a significant amount of public speaking, at least on stage. It is transforming into, a lot of these technology leaders are starting to do very large speaking engagements. And so, Rhett, are you starting to see public speaking kind of transformed the way that leadership teams are having to develop their staff as well with some of these technology leaders?
Look, I think going back to just the original question, I think it's an important skill. It's an important skill to be able to take an idea and be able to share it with people and have them understand it, having them understand it in a very simple way. I think it's an important skill in terms of motivating and inspiring your teams. I'm working with a company now where their CEO, and this is a major company that we all know, and the CEO is an engineer, and he hates. I don't think he likes people very much, but he also don't think that he likes to be on stage. And so it is a massive problem for his team. And so he's got to work through it because the job requires him to be on stage. It requires him to motivate and inspire people with the message and with where the company is going. So, yeah, I mean, I think, the virtual platforms like Zoom and StreamYard and other, have made it so that we have to be out in front of people virtually. It's made it so that you have to be able to speak, and particularly in a remote, if you're dealing with remote teams and you're dealing with people who are working remotely, you have to be face to face with them, at least in this way. So you have to be able to speak and articulate your ideas and your thoughts. And you're right, Collision and Web Summit and all these major conferences have given us new ways to get our messages out there. And I think it's a requirement now for anybody in senior leadership in the C staff to be able to get on a major stage and talk. And I think, you do see some companies who are paying attention to that, who are training and giving their staff and their C staff this kind of training. And I think it's important it's more prevalent now. And you have to sort of get out there and it also goes to building your own brand. So, as you get into the C staff of a major corporation, you have to think about building your own brand on top of the work that you have to do for the company, because you don't know where you're going to be in 5 years. You don't know where you're going to be in 10 years. And so you have to, I think, put yourself out there.
So Jose, you have a super strong background in sales, and you and your team have grown your organizations like crazy. I think we were talking about this the other day, like 127 or crazy percentages over time. And so personal branding plays a little bit into business growth. So as a leader, I mean, you've done a TV show, you've done all sorts of media stuff. Like, how are you tactically using your sales techniques, your personal brand to grow your organization? Or what are some methods or recommendations that you're using to do so?
I would say it depends as well also which type of industry you're in. So I'm in a very family tight-knit kind of industry where your personal brand in the local market means a lot. That people recognize you, like Corey was saying, through the New York Times principle. If your name the first thing they do after they Google your name, what's going to come up, right? It makes that personal reputation is everything. Now, building on some of the prior stuff, you have to become some sort of leader where you are positioning yourself as a brand. At the end of the day, there are customers that come to us not just because of the service, but because of who is in there. And it doesn't mean that me as the CEO has to be the brand. Individual employees, it doesn't matter what level they are, they carry their own brand, because many times that becomes their reputation in whatever sized industry. In my industry, I know that certain employees, wherever they work, customers follow. And it doesn't matter what you're in, that will happen. in major corporations. You might think, oh, I'm just a mid-tier person, so on. You still have a lot of connections, relationships within the company, within the organizations, with third-party vendors. And eventually you move on. Those relationships, it still exist at some level based on your performance and that personal reputation you build with them. So celebrity isn't all about TikTok and Instagram and whatever for me. My celebrity is being known in my local market as ethical, transparent, and hardworking, and providing results and walking the talk. And that's the kind of reputation that I'm building for myself, or at least trying to. And that's what I want people to see. So while I don't have a strong social media presence, because it actually that kind of thing would work against me for my professional reputation in my industry. So not that I don't have time, it wouldn't even make sense for me. So it depends on what you're trying to build. My professional and personal relationships are going to be worth more than my Instagram, regardless of how many followers I ever have. So I can't speak over being able to create a massive online following, because we could say my following is a little bit more boots on the ground.
Well, that's important. And so, Corey, so you kind of see this from a lot of different angles because of all of the different things that you have your hands in. So from the coffee shop, it's kind of the local scene, but getting that name out, getting your name out from a, a behavioral health standpoint, but also, some of the government stuff that you do and some of the things that you're looking to grow your career into. So give the audience some tactical tips and tricks that you may have that could drive value for them, and maybe a couple of different use cases. You're on mute.
Thank you.
We've got to have at least one of those on a conference call, right?
Say something great and philosophic, and then no one heard it. Like Jose was saying, and you've got to do what makes sense for you and for your audience. So for the coffee shop, we're all people coffee and beverage hall. It needs to have a strong social media presence, right? You want people to see what you're doing, what drinks are coming out, your nightlife, your coffee in the morning, the specials you have. You want people to know about it. So you want to grow social media. For me, I don't personally utilize my social media, and I don't do it well. I don't have Instagram anymore. I don't have Facebook anymore. I have Twitter, but that's where I get my news. If I post something, I want people to see it because that falls in line with the political things that I'm working on. It falls in line with the government things that I'm working on, or my audience in sports is on Twitter. So as Jose mentioned, no matter what you do, it has to make sense for your brand, because we all are our own brand. Sheila represents herself, but she also represents HCA. If you live in Nashville, especially, you know who HCA is and what they do. I used to work for HCA myself. For Rhett, as a columnist, it may make more sense for him to be on LinkedIn. It may make more sense for him to post certain things on certain platforms because he has his own brand. Same thing with Jose and you, Amanda. So the tips that I would give is, if it doesn't make sense, don't do it. Don't try and fit into a category you're not. I believe Jose mentioned TikTok. If you are a TikTok influencer and you dance, don't try and get on TikTok and do other things. Do your dance, let people see you do your dance, and that's how you get your name out there. If you are a culinary person and you post every recipe that you make and it works on Instagram, don't get on LinkedIn and try and promote it there because it just doesn't make sense. So when it comes to getting your name out there, the tips that I would say, or promoting yourself, find your lane, find what works for you and your brand the most, and utilize it to its fullest extent. Now, I'm not saying you can't reinvent yourself. I'm not saying you can't diversify what you do a little bit. But if something is your bread and butter, don't try and fix it. Keep rolling with it.
So also, I want to add, and I'm stuck on this word. And Rhett, we said this word on another conference call, so I'm stuck on it. be totally ruthless with just getting things out there. Like, be courageous and try. Like, you're not going to know what's going to work if you don't put forth the effort to actually try it. And it takes courage. You've got to be ruthless. You've got to be disciplined. You've got to continue to get things out there. If you don't at least try multiple different things when you're first starting out, then you're never going to know what's going to work. But once you find out what works, lean into that. Okay, so we've got a couple of other questions here, and I want to be respectful of everybody's time. So let's dive into what is the biggest accomplishment that you are proud of to date, personally and professionally? So, Rhett, I want to start with you on this one because you have done so many things. And I'm curious, if you could select one that is your biggest accomplishment, what would that be?
My kids, hands down. That's not even a fair question because that's just number one. From a work perspective, I'll be always very proud of two things: the work that I did with USAID in Central Asia post 9/11. I thought that work had meaning and it had purpose, and we did good things. I think the other thing from a personal and professional standpoint would be the toy company and how we took that from nothing to a global company. So those are things that I will always sort of remember fondly. But I don't look back a bunch. I don't look back a lot. I'm a pretty forward-looking person, and I don't dwell on failures and successes very much because those things don't really matter. But that'd be the answer.
All right, Sheila, what about you?
Wow. I think I would have to align with Rhett as far as non-professional, just my son. He's wonderful. He's challenging. he's all those things that a 22-year-old are supposed to be. But also at the same time as he challenges me sitting back and watching him grow and develop in ways that he doesn't think that he is developing in. And I'm just, being patient for that time when I can, just have that one-on-one with him and lay it out for him. Because, that age group now, that it is such a challenge. I mean, there's just so many outside influences that age group's dealing with. And so, and I won't lie, I mean, it has been a challenge too, because I'm that nurturing type person that just wants to sit him down and say, no, this is what you want to do, you need to do. But so it's a challenge to, sit back and be patient and let him make his own way. And like I said, I just am anticipating that day when I can just really, sit down and say, hey, look at this, look at where you were now, look at this, where you are. And professionally, I think for me, it's just the development that I saw in myself when I was, as we talked about, faced with challenge. I was injured. I've had 4 knee surgeries. And so that had a pretty profound impact on what I always looked at as my journey as a professional athlete. And so looking at the fact that I was able to turn it around and switch gears and take advantage of, like I said, the education. And that's why it's important to have that to fall back on. And just the fact that, I consider myself a successful leader. And then also just the love that I have for people. Me helping other people is so important to me. And I get such gratification in helping others discover their strengths and putting things in front of them that they didn't even know that they had the opportunity or the capability of doing. That's Sheila.
I love that. Okay. Corey, what about you, my man?
Oh, goodness. Personally, since we're going personal and professional, I guess. I don't have any kids. I think that's an accomplishment in itself. I joke. But no, I think personally the biggest accomplishment for me is finishing my doctorate. That was something that my grandmother did, my mother did, and my mom had me at 16 years old. So paying homage to the strong women who came before me, it was just like, nope, I've got to live up to the expectation and the standards that they set. And I mentioned this to you, Amanda, before, and I'm going to brag on my family. All of my grandparents in a Black family are all college educated. All of my extended family, aunts and uncles, are college educated, and that's something that you don't see a lot. So I think personally, the biggest accomplishment was just trying to live up to them. Professionally, I think the thing I'm most proud of actually comes within college-bound athletics. I won't say that young man's name, but we used to do something called the Ivy League tour. We would go and visit all 8 Ivy League schools. We'd throw in a few other schools, make a 10-day trip, and visit all these schools, talk to coaches in camp at these universities for football. One of my athletes, who was very intelligent, from an inner city school in Nashville, couldn't afford the trip. He just, Coach, I can't afford it. I said, get on the bus. Get on the bus. I don't care. We'll figure that out later. Get on the bus. He ended up earning a scholarship to, I shouldn't say scholarship, earning an opportunity to attend Yale University. And that is where he will graduate from this year. So just the fact that I was blessed to have the resources to put things together, like a tour that this young man would have never had the opportunity, nor would he have attended Yale if we didn't just sometimes just take a risk, get on the bus, we'll figure it out. And he's going to go on and be an engineer. So I'm excited for him. I think that's what I'm most proud of.
Whew, that is amazing. Okay, Jose, you're on mute. That's the second one.
All right.
We need to have the bingo cards, the conference call bingo cards.
My, I have a 3-year-old, so everything she does is amazing. And you're super proud of everything. But I gotta say, this 3-year-old speaks 3 languages, and she yells at you in all 3 of them, which is incredible. She figured it out. In itself, she's already a step ahead in leadership. Now, professionally, I also don't like tooting horns or whatever, but I also want to give a little dose of realism for any of the young people that might be watching this. Is you don't have to be perfect to make it. I was a B student, and I'm honest about it. I aced my test. I didn't do my homeworks, but that was me. But I didn't go to an Ivy League school. Could I? Probably, but it just wasn't for me. And then I started my career, did the corporate stuff, learned everything, and now doing it for my own. And effort, accountability, and responsibility go a lot further than just a grade. I have a sister who's she's going into her senior year. I wish I was half the student she is. She's got like a 4.3, only APs, everything. She's dreaming of going to an Ivy League, and I tell her, don't kill yourself over it. It might not necessarily be the differentiator for her, because she's got an opportunity to be able to pick and choose, thankfully enough. But it goes back to, this is a country of opportunities if you know where to take them and if you can identify them. This is the country of rags to riches, of the immigrant that pops off a plane and then 3 years later owns the largest yogurt brand in the country. This is the country of Rhett Power and Courtney Alexander and Sheila and Amanda. This is a country that you can do a lot. And a lot of it is down to each of us and how we want to do it. And for that, I'm also incredibly grateful one way or another. So, yeah.
Well, I am so grateful for each one of you guys. I'm blessed and honored to have you guys not just join and share your genius with everybody, but to also be friends. So I'm super grateful for that. we're wrapping up on time. We could probably literally talk for like ever. And luckily we didn't do this on a Tuesday, so we have hundreds of questions coming in because we were only able to get through about 4 or 5 of them. So to those that submitted, thank you so much for tuning in and sticking with us on this Friday afternoon. But I want to ask each one of you guys, how can people follow and support your journeys? So you guys are each doing incredible things. And so Corey, I want to start with you because I am personally convinced that you will be our president one day. I am super convinced of this. I am cheering you on and supporting you.
Me too.
And I believe in you. So let's get it moving, my friend. But how can people continue to follow you and support your journey? What's the best way to do so?
No matter what the platform is, Corey R. Alexander. So at Corey R. Alexander on Twitter, or if I ever get my other socials back, at Corey R. Alexander, Facebook, same thing. And then Corey R. Alexander at gmail.com. Feel free to email, call, text, email.
And you have the coolest coffee shop and you're expanding that into all sorts of different areas. So if you're listening in and you want a coffee shop, reach out to Corey because he has got, in my opinion, the best one. It is amazing. It's not just coffee, it's also wine and beer.
Yeah.
And it's all people. So we're running up on time, but long story short, I brought my daughter to the coffee shop on the opening. And the first thing she did, she's 11, she walked in and she said, "Mom, these people are so cool. They're all different." And I was like, I think that's pretty much the point of all people. So Corey has captured that. So Rhett, what about you, my friend?
Mr. President has a nice sound, doesn't it, Corey?
It does. It does.
Our Senator Alexander. I concur. I think Corey is going to be a leader of the future that we really need. But people can get in touch with me at rhettpower.com, and they can find my work at Forbes and Inc. and other platforms, and they can get in touch with me about coaching. And you can also find Accountability Inc. at accountabilityinc.io, and you can sign up for one of our masterminds. We have those that start every month. And what we do is we find that being in one of those masterminds, it can help you increase your productivity by 95%. And so reach out to me about that.
And Rhett and I are heading to where? Collision, Toronto?
Well, Collision in Toronto, and there are a couple other things going on. We're going to do this thing in August in Nashville, which is going to be a lot of fun. And we've got a couple other big events coming up this year. So
if you're heading to Toronto, to Collision, we're doing interviews. We're going to have a good time. We're meeting with all sorts of incredible people. So if you're tuning in and you're heading there, definitely reach out to me or Rhett because we would love to meet you while you're over there.
And by the way, I am hosting a pitch competition at Collision. And so if you have a business to pitch, reach out to me and let's see if we can get you on stage.
So we may need to talk about that, right? Okay. Sheila, what about you?
Well, I guess professionally, I would say, again, I work for HCA, so go to HCA hospitals. But outside of my HCA career, one of the things I didn't talk about is I serve on several boards, community boards, and that's a big part of my life as well. I'm on the YMCA board. I'm on the Tennessee Performing Arts Center board, TPAC. I'm on the Nashville Sports Council. And then I'm also on an organization called Education Equal Opportunity Group. And so my message there is that there's so many 501(c) organizations in Nashville that can use your support. Community engagement is so important in Nashville. And so I would say just to, look those 501(c)s up and support them in any way that you can. I mentioned TPAC. We have a great new schedule that has been put out there for 2023. The arts are important in Nashville, and then Nashville definitely is a sporting city. And so I would just say, look for some great new things to start happening in Nashville around women's athletics. Again, I'm the chair of our Women in Sports Committee. And so we're looking to do some great and new things in women's athletics. And then again, just support 501(c)s.
I love that. Okay, Jose, what about you?
Like I said, I'm not too big on socials because it's a very local business, but you can find out about what we do at empirehoa.com. It's actually, I'm incredibly proud of the site we launched earlier this year. And you can find me on LinkedIn at JR Riestra or Instagram by the same handle.
Awesome. And to everybody tuning in, thank you so much. Guys, thank you for joining in and sharing your geniuses with everybody. It's always a pleasure. And thank you again for sending in questions. Once again, I know it's Friday afternoon, but hopefully you learned a lot. I know I learned a lot on this conversation, and thanks for your continuous support. And so all I can say is happy Friday, and we'll see you guys another time. Thanks for tuning in.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Cheers.